Good evening everyone and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the news that's been going on over the past week. Not really Living World related, but other news within the community, things that have been data mined, blogs ArenaNet have thrown out, and stuff like Caithe Post, because there has been a fair amount to talk about. Included will be a bit of speculation about the Living World, namely because ArenaNet tweeted another very interesting image with some text on it, just like they did with Ritlock last week, where he was saying, "My journey has only begun," and we saw him wearing the blindfold. Something that ultimately didn't play a part in the patch we just had, but is obviously hinting at stuff that will become relevant when he comes back. So, in no particular order, let's start off with Gaile comments on the official forums about the lack of game direction and criticism levied at ArenaNet over stuff like many employees leaving and the general notion that there is a lack of communication. So we're kind of settled as a community knowing what ArenaNet are doing right now. They're doing Living World stuff, then they have breaks that many of us feel are considerably too long, and then they have feature packs which some of us, especially with Feature Pack 2, are considering do not change enough. I do think that our community is a little bit muddied and a little bit spoiled with the amount of stuff that comes into this MMO compared to others, but this is something that we know ArenaNet are doing, and beyond that, we don't really know what their plans are for the franchise. We do know for a fact that the people working on Living World and the people who contribute to the feature packs do not encompass everyone at the company. We do know that they have some big background project that they're refusing to talk to us about, and this has got a lot of people quite jaded, a lot of people quite upset. This fact that ArenaNet won't talk to us about what they have planned long term is worrying, and I can understand why people are worried by this. ArenaNet have always maintained the stance that they don't tell us because things can change. Basically, they're in a lose-lose situation. They tell us all this cool stuff they want to do, it ends up falling through, they get hate for it. Or they stay quiet, and then they get hate for it anyway because people want more information. So Gaile kind of just reiterated on the forum all of these opinions of ArenaNet right now. I do think it is curious that they won't announce to us like their really long-term plans. If their super long-term plans and overall visions and goals for the company are so malleable that they can't actually announce it to us as a community, maybe that is cause for concern, but I've always felt that underneath, though they will probably not admit it to us, that they are working on an expansion, and the reason that they are not announcing the existence of this expansion to us is because that will make many of us in the community feel okay putting the game down. For as long as they don't announce the expansion, and as long as we're uneasy about, oh, is Living World it? Maybe I should just keep playing it and try and enjoy the Living World. For as long as we're doing that, we're still playing the game. They're trying to avoid having these massive population spikes where people only return for expansions and then suddenly things drop off again. They want us constantly invested in just the Living World, and then the expansion is something amazing that will come along later. That's why I believe they don't announce it to us. I don't think it's necessarily that their long-term plans are super malleable, it's just they don't want to give us a justification for leaving and coming back, you know, when the new X pack drops. They want us invested the whole time. Anyway, here's some choice quotes from Gaile, so you guys can be a little bit on the loop. She says, "No, the game is not lacking direction, nor is it lacking vision or goals, plans, ideas, concepts, or any of the other properties that guide our future. The quiet now is not an indicator of anything other than the fact that, at this time, the company is not talking about the future, but is instead working on it." And that quote I just gave you guys, I fully believe in. I am not a particularly impatient person anymore, not with the years of radio silence I had waiting in this franchise after Guild Wars 2 was announced, but before any of the media circus began. I'm kind of okay with it, especially considering we have Living World and feature packs to tide us over for now. There will be some naysayers out there who say that ArenaNet aren't working on anything, nothing's going on, but that would be folly to believe that. They're doing a big project, they've announced it to us, there are big names at the company that have just sort of gone completely off the radar and we have no idea what they're working on right now. It's got to be some kind of big expansion, and we're just gonna have to wait for them to be ready before they talk to us about it. She finished her quote by saying, "In general, with nearly anything, there are ebbs and flows in communication. If we're in an ebb right now, you can count on there being a flow in the future. That's just logical." I get people's impatience. You can see what you think. A lot of people don't have that exact tone. There'll be a link in the description for you to check it out for yourself. Next bit of news, let's have a look at the Caithe thing. So, this will be a minor spoiler for the patch. I haven't quite done a story summary just yet on the most recent patch, so skip ahead if you haven't played this yet. But at the end of the last patch, as many of us predicted might happen, and was a fantastic payoff for me, we saw that Caithe stole the Master of Peace's egg shortly after he died. Now, there was speculation on my channel in many places at the idea that maybe Caithe had gone crazy, something weird was going on with her. For me, this was the highlight of the patch. One of the comments I got from a friend very quickly was, oh, this was so predictable and lame. I liked that this was predictable. For once, speculation we were doing before a patch came out actually went in the direction we thought it was going to go. This is a very good thing. The small hints throughout the patch where you see Caithe following you from like a long distance, and the very subtle ways that she reacted in some of that initial dialogue while we're talking about the egg were all supremely well done, and I was very happy to see that ultimately she did betray us. An actual betrayal in the story. ArenaNet do not do this often in Guild Wars 2, and I'm really happy with how the story went. But after the patch came out, they did their tweet, and it shows Caithe running with the quote, "I will bear your pain." Now, the funny thing is, though they have telegraphed this story quite well, what are her motives? We are incredibly in the dark right now. What does she even want with the egg? I thought I'd run you guys through some of the options here. Number one is that she somehow wants to cure the pale tree with the egg. Now, this doesn't seem to make very much logical sense. How does an egg cure the pale tree? It's just an idea, though, that if we assume she has not been corrupted by Morgemoth, which is obviously the top of the charts for the reason why she may have betrayed us, if she is not being possessed by Morgemoth or open to Morgemoth at the moment, maybe she just wants to help the pale tree. Maybe the pale tree herself has got some ulterior plan. She's dying after all, and maybe this is what Caithe wants. You do have to consider that when Caithe stole the egg from us, she said no time to explain. She didn't come out with some, oh, I am evil, I am the new Scarlet 3.0, and then ran off, right? She didn't do that. She seemed like she was still doing the right thing in her own opinion. I suppose anyone feels that way. But it seems like she does want to give us an explanation. There's just no time right now. Or she was just fobbing us off. Either way, you can say perhaps she still has noble intentions. Back to the quote, "I will bear your pain." Who is she even saying that to? The pale tree? She will bear the pale tree's pain? That doesn't really make very much sense, right? Scarlet's pain? Scarlet clearly had some connection to Caithe, clearly knew something about Caithe, right? I'd done the digging, knew Caithe's secret, and now I'm regretting on some level that we managed to kill Scarlet so soon without ever getting that secret out of her. Is she bearing Scarlet's pain right now? I've seen that thrown around, but again, it just doesn't seem to make much sense. People have even suggested that she's bearing the egg's pain. And again, these things, they just don't seem to line up. We may find ultimately that Caithe is going to continue looking more and more convincingly like she's been possessed by Morgemoth, but then finally she'll reveal, "I know I had my own agenda, I did have it all planned out in the end, and everything will be hunky-dory." We'll have to see. But it does seem like, if you guys have noticed, that's 2 members of Destiny's Edge down now. Ritlock's missing. Caithe may have gone crazy and ended up betraying us. It'll be interesting to see that group very organically disintegrate. I mean, there was a lot of focus last patch on Air as well, focusing on Bram being kind of broody herself. Maybe we'll just see things fall apart. That would be kind of interesting. I also like the idea as well of the possibility that ArenaNet might be doing weekly tweets now, weekly kind of lore-based tweets that have these big speculative threads thrown out about them because they just are that good. That's 2 weeks in a row, or 2 patches in a row they've done it now. I'd like to see that continue. While we're on the topic of the patch as well, some things I haven't really talked about on the channel you guys may have missed. During one of the missions, you can actually notice a human standing on a cliff called the Mysterious Stranger, or the Mysterious Man, watching over you. And I think maybe this may have been the first patch we ever saw E. This could be E. For a while now, I have believed that they're setting up E. E isn't going to be an existing character in the story. You know, they can't, after so long, have the big reveal, "Oh, I was E all along." You know, I feel like they've gone so long now. It might be one of these things like Jacob on Lost, if you guys ever followed Lost, where you have the mystery man behind the curtain for so long that the best way to finally reveal it without it feeling horrible is to just have it be a new character. And maybe they're going to slowly slot this guy in here every now and then. He looks like kind of a generic beggar kind of guy, right? But we'll see. That was one interesting thing. Another interesting thing is dialogue at the fort which we traveled to get to the Silver Waste, where the White Mantle were supposedly once, you know, very active. They have an Asura Gate there, and there's dialogue in game that says the Asura Gate seems to lead somewhere that should be impossible. more connections of where the White Mantle had fled to, perhaps, and maybe they didn't flee anywhere interior at all. Maybe this has got some weird tie to the Fractals of the Mists, maybe some tie to Lord Audrin's portals, some tie to the Massar and their ability to slip out of phase. Very interesting. More little hints there, though. Anyway, so that's the stuff to do with the patch. Next little bit of news was data mining stories. Now, plenty was data mined. There was a bit of mild controversy, though, throughout the week, where that shaman had data mined 3 items: the chalice, the flask, and the phial of royal essence. What could these be? Now, I have heard someone speculate that these could have something to do with the Winter's Day farming, and maybe we'll get some kind of Zerg content for Winter's Day, and that's what these are to do with. But there were instant naysayers. I don't know how jaded you have to be to still believe this after so many comments that it will never happen. Okay, people immediately saying, oh, this is clearly some kind of new VIP system. Really now? This is a new currency for new VIP, is it? Well, ArenaNet were very, very quick. One of the German community managers, I believe, saw a thread on their forums and immediately just said, no, this is not a VIP thing. We've announced that VIP isn't coming to Guild Wars 2 in these regions. Will you listen to us now? So yeah, kind of funny, but they slapped it down, and no, this isn't anything to do with VIP. Some of the biggest news I'll end the video on that occurred earlier in the week was in the form of some official blogs talking about PvP changes. Almost feels feature packy, what I'm about to talk about, but wasn't bundled into a feature pack in the end. In particular, these are matchmaking changes, mostly for PvP and the way that ladders work. So this is kind of exciting. Personally, I do think PvP has a lot to offer, but Conquest has sort of killed it for me, and I can't see myself getting majorly into it for a long time. However, these are cool changes, and should address a few of the issues PvP currently faces, as long as Conquest remains its priority game type anyway. So let's have a look. First, I'll explain very basically to you guys who may not be 100% aware. The idea of matchmaking is when you decide you want to play PvP either on your own or with 2 friends, with 4 friends, you've got a full group, whatever, how the game finds opponents for you to play it against, alright? It's how it matches you up with other people. And the algorithms and systems that their matchmaking use need to be quite robust and smart. Ideally, they can do stuff like put new players against new players so that you don't get these 500 to 0s and people just have terrible experiences the first time they wander into PvP and then ultimately quit. But at the same time, you don't want to have people waiting in queues to matchmake for like 2 hours before they find an appropriate team against them. You've got to find some kind of a balance, right? That balance wasn't always perfect in Guild Wars 2, so they've made some refinements. Number 1, they state that matchmaking and ladder are no longer connected. So we know what matchmaking is. Now, to describe ladder, this is the idea of the better you do in PvP, the more games you win in a row, the more games you win against high-skilled opponents, the higher your rank will go. So if you were to look at the PvP leaderboards, this is the ladder, right? You get to see the top 100 players, and it's based on how frequently they win in PvP and against who they win frequently in PvP. Now, these two things, the idea of the ladder and matchmaking, used to be connected, i.e. matchmaking would look at your ladder ranking to decide who you go up against, and that seems quite logical, right? This way you get high-skill people against high-skill people, low-skill people against low-skill people. But there were issues here, and they've disconnected both of them now to give themselves a lot more freedom with the way that matchmaking actually works. For example, now you could be a very high-skilled engineer. You know, everybody knows your name as the engineer, right? You do absolutely everything on your NG. You're really high on the ladders with your NG. But you kind of want to learn how to play Mesmer, so you know how to fight Mesmers better. But you know the second you swap to Mesmer, this class you're not very good with, you're going to plummet on the leaderboards, and you're not going to be able to hold up, and you don't want that. So players, up until now, were never really incentivized to try other classes. Well, now, if you decide to swap to a class you're really weak on, the game will recognize that you've played barely any games on that class, and it will matchmake you against lower skill opponents. I'm a little bit worried that this may be exploitable in some way, but of course with any of these, we're just going to have to wait and see how they're actually implemented. In theory though, I love the idea. Further, now they're going to place you and matchmake you based on your rank rather than your ladder position. And they do say, so rank is like the long-term like PvP experience you slowly build up, ultimately ends at 80. And they do say, yes, rank doesn't really mean anything about your skill. Like me as a player, I'm rank 80, but I haven't PvP'd in ages. I'm super low skill. I'm not very good at PvP at all. So this in theory sounds like a poor idea, but they're just saying it's essentially a baseline. And as a baseline, I do think it's quite suitable. So there is another big change, okay? Now, currently in PvP, you have two ways to play the actual game type 5v5 and do real matches beyond hot joins, okay? One of them is known as team queues, where you find party members and you decide to queue in all together. Or the other one is solo queue, where you don't have any party members, you just sort of go in and it's almost like random arenas, okay? And for the most part, this is pretty good, but as population levels go down during off-peak times, it can mean to play team queues, you take forever to get in a match, and you never want to do team queues unless you have all 4 other people with you. There's like no middle ground. You feel like you're just going to lose if you do a team queue with only 2 people instead of the full 5. So team queue always ended up really lowly populated. So they're changing this. There is no more, after this patch, distinction between solo queue and team queue. Matchmaking is smarter about who it groups you against. If I just decide to play with only one of my friends, then I'm likely to get matched up against other people who also aren't in full parties, and so this way you're on a more even playing field. That change, therefore, that removal of solo and team queue is actually quite big for the game. Again, hopefully it works quite well. In theory, I like the idea. And lastly, they've announced that there will be a season coming up, like a test season arriving pretty soon. They haven't nailed everything down with seasons. This is kind of paving the way for them or whatever. But they are saying that to test stuff out, that will be coming. And if you come very high when that season comes out, so this is a PvP season, not a World vs. World season. If you're ranked very high at this point, you can get mini llamas and glorious armor for doing very well, which is kind of exciting. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Other minor changes, fluffy stuff like them saying Dishonor is a bit more punishing on quitters. The fact that now you don't even have rosters. Like, it used to be you'd have to party up and then you'd send everyone in your party a roster invite, and then you'd all be in the roster and then you would queue in. Now you've just got a party and you queue instantly, right? So it's a bit more streamlined, and maybe we'll revitalize a little bit more of the PvP scene. Anyway, there you go, guys. Wanted to keep you guys in the loop for a bit of the news this week. Let me know what you think. There will be lots of links in the description. Hope you have a great day, and I guess I will see you tomorrow for some Guild Wars 2 Mythbusters. Fingers crossed, anyway. I'll see you there.